Today we are going to do section 10.5, which is completing the square. So if we look at these first couple, do we remember how we would multiply these out, or we would FOIL them out? So we see x plus 7, the quantity squared. When we multiply that out, that's going to be x squared plus 14x plus 49, or x plus 7 times x plus 7. So when we go ahead and we complete the rest of these, x minus 11 quantity squared will be x squared minus 22x plus 121. X minus 4 quantity squared will be x squared minus 16x, whoops, no, minus 8x, good call, Cash, plus 16. And then x plus 9 quantity squared will be x squared plus 18x plus 81. Hopefully we see the relationship between this number in here, the 9, we would just double that to get the middle term. Okay, we're going to talk about how we would complete the square, which means we're going to try and make our expressions be perfect square trinomials like those trinomials are up above. So to complete the square, the first thing we always want to do is we want to check for a GCF and make sure that we divide it out. Because completing the square is only going to work if the value for a is 1. Next, we will go ahead and we're going to make sure that it's in the form ax squared plus bx equals c. Once it's in this form, we're going to go ahead and we're going to complete the square, which means we're going to add something to both sides of our equal sign, and we're going to add b divided by 2 squared to each side. Once we do that, we are going to have a perfect square trinomial, and so we're going to go ahead and factor that. I'm going to factor our perfect square trinomial. And then our final step, we will just go ahead and solve using square roots. And this is like what we were doing during section 10.4, which I heard most people comment that they thought was pretty easy. So we're going to take what we learned in that section and apply it to this section. So these steps probably look pretty confusing until we do a couple of examples. So let's go ahead and look at our first example. Here we're not going to solve anything, we're just going to complete our square. So we have x squared plus 18x plus some mystery number for c that we need to find out what's going to complete that square. So 18 is our value for b. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 18 divided by 2, and we're going to square that. The parentheses are helpful if we have a negative number that we can keep track of things. And so the number we're going to use to complete the square is going to be 81. So now our completed perfect square trinomial is x squared plus 18x plus 81. And hopefully we recognize then that this will factor to x plus 9 quantity squared, or x plus 9 plus x plus 9. But we're going to write it like this, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. We have x squared minus 10x, and so our b value is negative 10. So we'll do negative 10 divided by 2. We're going to go ahead and square that. So negative 5 squared will be positive 25. Our perfect square trinomial will be x squared minus 25 minus 10x plus 25. You can tell us it's Friday afternoon, my goodness. So x minus 5 quantity squared. Now if you're having trouble thinking how are we factoring this so fast, well, once we do negative 10 divided by 2 and we get minus 5, that's where the x minus 5 is going to come into play. So we can notice the relationship between right here and right here. That can just be a shortcut for you. Now we're going to take and apply this and then actually solve some equations. So when we look at number 3, we see that on the left-hand side we just have x squared minus 16x. So we're going to go ahead and identify that negative 16 is our value for b. So we need to figure out what term we're going to add to both sides to make that a perfect square trinomial. So we will do negative 16 divided by 2, and we'll square that. So we have negative 8 squared which is 64. Now, when we add something to both sides of an equation, that's not going to change the value of the equation. So when we do x squared minus 16x and we add 64, that's allowed to do, or we're allowed to do that in the event that we also do negative 15 plus 64 on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, that'll factor to x minus 8, quantity squared. Ms. Cash, go ahead and she's doing negative 15 plus 64 on the right-hand side. Then we can factor the left-hand side to x minus 8, quantity squared, equals 49. When we look at this problem, this is just like what we did last time. So everything from here to the rest of this problem is going to be what we were doing during our last section. So we square root both sides. And we, of course, remember to write our two equations. X minus 8 equals 7. And x minus 8 equals negative 7. And we'll go ahead and solve those equations, and we get that our two solutions are going to be 15 and positive 1. All right, let's go ahead and do another one here. We see that we're in the correct form, so we identified b as negative 2. So we complete the square doing negative 2 divided by 2. We square that. So we're going to add 1 to both sides of our equation. So x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 3 plus 1. We're adding that 1 to both sides of the equation. Then we'll factor the x squared minus 2x plus 1. Then again, from here, this is where we're going to go ahead and just use what we used in the last section. So we square root both sides, and then we will solve our two equations. So x minus 1 equals 2, or x minus 1 equals negative 2, giving us our two solutions of 3 and negative 1. Okay, let's go on to another one. When we look at number 5, we see that we're not quite in the correct form. So we need to move that negative 8 to the other side of the equation. From here, we're going to go ahead and complete the square. So we'll do 10 divided by 2, and we'll square that. And then we will add 25 to both sides. So x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals negative 8 plus 25. When we factor x squared plus 10x plus 25, we'll get x plus 5. Quantity squared equals 17. And now when we square root here, we're going to make sure that we are accurately rounding to the nearest hundredth. So when we take the square root of 17, we're going to have x plus 5 is equal to positive 4.12, or x plus 5 is equal to negative 4.12. So we can go ahead and find our two solutions to be negative 0.088 and negative 9.12. Next one, same type of thing. We need to first move that minus 7 to the other side. And we'll go through this same process of completing the square. 6 divided by 2, quantity squared. And so our missing value is going to be 9. We factor this. To be x plus 3 quantity squared equals 16. And likewise, we'll square root both sides. And so we will have x plus 3 equals 4, or x plus 3 equals negative 4, giving us our two solutions of 1 or negative 7. Okay. 2 more and then we're done. We'll look at number 7 here, and we have a number in front of x squared, so it's not going to work to complete the square. So what we need to do is we need to factor that 2 out, because that's going to be our GCF. So if I factor out 2, we have left x squared plus 10x, and then we can just divide 2 out of there. So once we divide the left-hand side by 2, and the right-hand side by 2, then we're going to be ready to complete the square. We're now using x squared plus 10x is equal to 4. And if we look at that, all we've done is chop the first equation that we were given right in half. Now we'll go ahead and we'll complete the square. We'll do 10 divided by 2 squared, which will give us 5 squared, which is 25. And then we'll go through our same process. You might start to see that some of the completing the squares are starting to look very familiar, and that's fine, but we would encourage you maybe to show out this work so when you factor, it makes it a little bit easier for you. So we complete the square, we factor it to be x plus 5 squared equals 29, and then we can take the square root of both sides, and then we'll have x plus 5 is equal to 5.39, or x plus 5 is equal to negative 5.39, giving us our two solutions of 0.39 and negative 10.39. And lastly, got a couple things to adjust here. We see that we have a GCF of 3. We can go ahead and we can take that out of everything. So we take out our 3, left with x squared minus 8x plus 9 equals 0. We can divide 3 out of there. Zero divided by 3 is just 3. We have x squared minus 8x plus 9 is equal to 0. We need to move 9 to the other side. So we'll go ahead and we will complete the square from here. So we're going to divide negative 8 by 2, which will be negative 4 squared, which will be 16. Gosh, you're missing a negative sign there, lady, by the 8 and the 4. Oh, yeah. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals negative 9 plus 16. And then we'll go ahead and we'll complete our process where we will have x minus 4 quantity squared. And we're kind of running out of room, so we're going to write off to the side here. Oh, we'll just move that thing. We are smart. So now we have x minus 4, the quantity is squared, is equal to 7. And we trust that you know how to finish solving that, so we're just going to go ahead and leave our answers up there for you. Once you square root them, what will our two answers be? Our solutions are going to go ahead and be x is equal to 6.65 or 1.35. And we trust that you know how to solve that using your square root. Okay, the problems that you need to do on your own are going to be right here. And we put them up there in the event that you forgot your note sheet at school and you're still being responsible and doing this at home. Have a lovely Monday night, and we'll see you tomorrow.